Hey, this is Ted from TED Talks Bass. I want to share something with you that I think is going to help you to improve on your instrument faster than you are, faster than you think you are. This is a framework that I came up with a long time ago, and I've shared with students. I've shared it on this channel for a long time now, and I want to explain to you how it works. You can kind of think about this as operationalizing your musical competency. We're going to do this by way of a framework called PHSE. All right, so check this out. It's also aligned with the National Association for Schools of Music. And, for those of you who don't know, I'm a former music educator, taught in schools for a long time as a tech integration coach. I've also been a professional musician for over 25 years. Also, I was sort of a late bloomer, so I went back to college at the tender age of 35 and played upright. I'm primarily an electric bass player, but I started playing the upright bass at 35, and the requirements meant, having recitals and learning how to read and all those things, playing an orchestra. And so this is the framework that helped me to kind of survive that gauntlet and get through a lot of other things in my musical journey. So here's what things look like for a lot of people. And this idea comes from a book called The Practicing Mind by Thomas Sterner. I really suggest checking that book out, and I'll link it somewhere around this video. But what happens is we do something, we play a piece, a phrase, and then we make judgments about that. We try to correct it, and we stay kind of stuck in this loop of frustration. And so what Thomas Sterner proposes in his book is that we detach from the immediate outcome, right? And we stop thinking about the product and think about the process. And this is something that I'm sure you've heard before, is process over product. So we observe, and then we correct, right? So you treat a wrong note like a data point and not failure. You may be familiar with the keep it short, keep it simple, silly. However, I can't say what they used to call it back in my day, but how about keep it simple, short, small, and slow? Constraints create freedom, right? So for instance, let's say you're a bass player and you are, working on improvisation, or we'll say soloing because that's the buzzword, but let's say you're just working on, improvisation. That's all it is, right? A solo is just improvising something in real time. But you limit yourself to 2 or 3 notes, right? That constraint is going to create more freedom than you think, right? And if you keep it simple, you're going to avoid being overwhelmed. If you practice in short bursts, now I have 45-minute bursts here, but this could be 10, 15, 5-minute focused practice sessions, right? If you keep it small, repeatable segments, and again, slow. Speed is a byproduct of efficiency. Speed will come over time. And speed is not always the best thing to do anyway. So it's not always relevant. But speed is a byproduct of efficiency. Now, where this framework comes in, play it, hear it, see it, explain it. Now, this is instrument agnostic. This counts for whatever instrument you play. All right, but this is the loop of truth. Can you play it? Can you hear it? Can you see it? Can you explain it? So step 1, if there's a phrase, a passage, a song that you're trying to learn, can you play the same thing repeatedly with minimal or no mistakes? One of the tests that I used to use when I was practicing for recitals was, can I play this one section 7 times in a row without making a mistake? Okay. Now, if I got to the 6th or seventh time and I made a mistake, then I had to start all over again. But that was the constraint that I was talking about. Now, what the constraints are gonna, vary by, your goals and what you're working on. But can you physically play it, right? Action and constraint. Also, can you hear it? Can you hear when you've made a mistake? Can you hear a note that's, out of context? I'll say out of context versus a wrong note. But you want, the NASM standard is, can you develop skills sufficient for evaluation and artistry? Can you hear what sounds right, what sounds wrong, what sounds good, what is stylistically appropriate, things like that. So step 2, can you hear it? Can you play it? Can you hear it? The next step is, can you visualize it? And this could come in a bunch of different forms. Can you see your guitar or your bass neck in your hands? Can you see those shapes even if the instrument is not near you? If it's written music, can you visualize that music in your mind's eye? So for instance, the Eccles Sonata for double bass was one of the pieces from my senior recital, and I was intimately familiar with that piece of music because I started studying it at the beginning of the year, and I had a certain amount of time to get it down. So every time I went into the practice room, I had to be mindful. There was no mindless noodling in the practice room. It was focused amounts of time between classes, between work, between life just happening. But I was so intimately familiar with that piece of music that I can close my eyes and I can see measures of music in my mind's eye. Okay, so can you play it? Can you see it? Can you hear it? And then can you explain it? The test is, what did you play? Why did it work? The NASM standard, the ability to defend value judgments and communicate musical ideas, right? Can you explain? I'm not talking about being a college professor or even a music teacher or a private teacher. I'm not necessarily talking about that, but can you, explain simply what it is that you played, right? Also, we could break up things like theory, ear training, technique. We could try to break them up, and sometimes that's appropriate to break them up into separate things, but they are all going to the same place. Every time you practice, in my opinion, in my very, very strong opinion, you should always be working on technique. You should always be working, again, on ear training. Can you hear it? The theory of it. Can I explain that, let's say, the lick from Sir Duke is a pentatonic scale and it uses 4 of the 5 different positions of the pentatonic scale on bass, right? We want to kind of put all of those things into one, understand that we're going to the same place, right? It's like, if you catch a bus or drive to your home, there's different routes you can take, but you're still going home. Okay, so the litmus test is, can I play it? Can I hear it? Can I see it? Can I explain it? Can you play it reliably? Can you observe and hear the errors? Can you address those errors quickly? Can you see the musical structure or the physical representation of the musical structure? Can you see that? Can you visualize that? And then can you explain it? I think when you have all of these things together, then you can move on to the next level of difficulty. So if you can answer yes to all 4 of those questions, then you can move on to whatever the next level of difficulty is. That could be an increase in tempo. That could be adding a new note, a new phrase, a new level of complexity, right? If you can't answer any of those questions and you want to stay in that loop, but what happens is we sort of play the same thing over and over and over again, but we don't have an evaluation process to get us from point A to point B. And trust me, there are things that I have played in the past that I haven't played in a long time, but if I wanted to play them again, what I like to say is I have to put that back in the shed. I have to get that back under my fingers. There's a line in the song, Do I Do? I haven't played that in a while. And sometimes I've had to, it's not completely gone, but I need to warm up a little bit and get that back into my under my fingers. You know what I mean? So there it is. Now, this is a story from the Practicing Mind, the Thomas Sterner book, which is a great read. It's a great audio book as well. But the story is that a worker was making plates, and instead of rushing to finish the whole pile, the product, he focused on making one perfect plate at a time, the process. And the result in that is peace, efficiency, and superior quality, right? So what you want to do is just perfect one thing at a time. Use that litmus test, do one thing at a time, and then move on to the next thing, right? You got to slow down to speed up. Trust me on this, right? Competency is a habit, not a destination. Replace judgment with observation. Use the loop. Play, hear, see, explain, and trust the process. It ain't rocket science. It's pocket science.